The night was unusually cold for Christmas Eve. Snowflakes fell gently from the sky, covering the streets in a soft white blanket. Streetlights flickered in the quiet, and the city seemed to slow down, as if holding its breath for the holiday to arrive. Most people were indoors, enjoying warmth, laughter, and the smell of festive dinners, but the dog moved through the streets alone. He was small and thin, with matted fur that had seen too many winters and summers on the unforgiving streets. Hunger gnawed at him like a sharp, constant ache that no amount of wandering seemed able to fix. He sniffed the ground, careful not to step on anything sharp hidden beneath the snow. Bits of discarded food lay here and there, but most were either too cold, too hard, or already spoiled. The dog lowered his head, trying to catch the faint smells that could guide him to something edible. A half-eaten sandwich lay near a trash bin, but as he approached, a crow swooped down and claimed it before he could even taste it. Frustration bubbled inside him, but he didn't give up. Every crumb was a chance, every bit of food a step closer to easing the emptiness inside him. The city's festive lights sparkled in shop windows and on trees, reflecting in puddles of melted snow. People rushed past with bags full of gifts and packages, laughing, talking, and sometimes even singing Christmas carols. The dog watched them all from a safe distance. Their faces were warm and happy, but none of that warmth seemed to reach him. He felt invisible, like a shadow passing through their bright, cheerful world. Still, he couldn't turn away from the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would notice him. As he wandered through the narrow streets, he passed a cafe that had left its door open for the cold night. The smell of fresh bread and pastries drifted out, making his stomach tighten even more. He sniffed the air, trying to find a way inside, but a small bell above the door jingled, and a human voice called out from inside. The dog froze and backed away. He had learned to be careful around humans. Most would shoo him away, sometimes even throw things at him, and he had no place to fight back. He was small, alone, and wary. Hunger pushed him forward, but caution held him back. The streets began to get quieter as the night deepened. Snowflakes continued to fall, sticking to his fur and chilling him to the bone. He curled himself into a small ball near a lamppost, trying to find a little shelter from the wind. Each breath came out in tiny clouds, and the cold bit at his nose and ears. He shivered, wrapping his tail around himself as tightly as possible. Hunger and cold were constant companions, but he had grown used to surviving despite them. Every night was a challenge, every step forward a small victory. He had learned to be alert, to move silently, to avoid the dangers of the streets, and to hope for small kindnesses that sometimes appeared out of nowhere. From a distance, he heard the faint sound of laughter and the jingling of bells. Curious, he lifted his head and tried to see where it came from. Down an alley, he noticed a faint glow from a Christmas tree that someone had set up in a small square. Around it, a few pigeons were pecking at scattered crumbs. Nearby, a man was kneeling, tossing pieces of bread to the birds. The dog's ears perked up. The man didn't seem to notice him yet, but there was something in the way he moved that felt different. The man's hands were gentle, his movements slow and careful. He didn't seem in a rush, and he didn't shoo the birds away. There was a kindness in the way he moved that made the dog inch closer, though his hunger still urged caution. The dog's paws sank slightly into the soft snow as he approached, each step careful and quiet. The man continued to feed the birds, his focus completely on them. The dog watched, his tail slightly wagging, and then hesitated. He had learned that humans could be unpredictable. Some were cruel, some were careless, and some could be dangerous. He had seen many who threw sticks or yelled, trying to scare him away. But this man felt different. There was a calmness about him, a warmth that seemed to fill the air around him, and in that moment, the dog felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this human could be trusted. The snow continued to fall, covering the ground in a quiet hush. The man bent down again and tossed another piece of bread to the pigeons, who fluttered and cooed in excitement. The dog inched a little closer, nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The scent of bread mixed with the cold winter air was too tempting to ignore. Hunger pushed him forward, and he took a small, cautious step toward the man. The pigeons scattered slightly at the sound, but the man didn't flinch. He continued tossing crumbs, completely unaware of the small pair of eyes watching him from the edge of the snow. The dog's heart raced. He had survived countless nights on the streets, but tonight felt different. There was a strange sense of possibility, as if something good could happen. He remembered the warmth of homes he had passed, the smell of food he could only dream of touching, and the laughter of families he had never been part of. And yet there was this man, kneeling quietly in the snow, sharing what he had with creatures even smaller than himself. It was an unusual sight, and it made the dog's tail wag ever so slightly. He had to be careful, but he also had to try. Hunger outweighed fear just enough to make him take another step forward. The man finally looked up and their eyes met. For a brief moment the dog froze, unsure of what to do, but there was no anger in the man's gaze, no hint of cruelty. Only a soft, gentle look that seemed to say everything the dog needed to hear. He wagged his tail tentatively and took a few more steps closer. The man's eyes softened further, and he slowly extended his hand, holding a small piece of bread. The dog sniffed cautiously, then, driven by hunger and a growing trust, he took it gently from the man's hand. The taste of bread, warm and soft, made his stomach ache ease just a little. He looked up at the man, feeling a strange connection, as if this kind human had seen him not just as a stray, but as someone worthy of care. The snow continued to fall around them, the city quiet except for the soft crunch of paws and the distant hum of car engines. The dog stayed close, sensing that this man, unlike the others, might actually offer him a moment of safety and warmth. The night was far from over, and the streets were still cold and lonely, but for the first time in a long while the dog felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas Eve could be different. Maybe this night could bring something unexpected, something that could change the course of a lonely, hungry life. The dog stayed close, his body still trembling from the cold and hunger, but a tiny sense of relief had settled in his chest. He had never been treated with such gentleness before. Humans usually rushed past him, ignored him, or chased him away. But this man kneeling in the snow and feeding the pigeons seemed different. There was no hurry in his movements, no impatience in his eyes. Everything about him radiated calmness, as if he belonged to this quiet night, as if he had been sent to meet the dog at this exact moment. The man bent down again, picking up a small piece of bread and holding it out. The dog sniffed it cautiously, his nose twitching at the warm, comforting smell. Hunger pushed him forward, and he took it gently. The taste was unlike anything he had eaten in days. Warm, soft, and nourishing. It made him close his eyes for a moment, savoring the rare comfort. The man watched quietly, as if he knew exactly how much the dog needed this small gift. There was no rush, no judgment, only patience and understanding. After the first piece of bread, the dog's tail began to wag slowly. It was a hesitant wag, unsure if he could trust humans so easily, but the simple gesture said more than words ever could. The man smiled softly, reaching down to scratch the dog's head. The touch was gentle and light, but it carried warmth that reached deep into the dog's bones. The dog leaned into the hand, a small whine escaping him, a sound that expressed both gratitude and relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, he did not feel invisible. He felt seen. The snow continued to fall, dusting the dog's fur and the man's shoulders, but the cold seemed less harsh in that small bubble of shared warmth. The man tossed another piece of bread to the pigeons and then, without moving his hand away, offered another to the dog. The dog ate carefully, his eyes never leaving the man's face. There was something familiar about the way he looked, a gentle presence that felt safe. The dog could not understand why, but he knew instinctively that this human was different. He felt an unspoken promise of kindness. As he ate, the dog noticed the man's expression changing slightly. There was a light in his eyes, a quiet joy that was not there before. The man seemed to enjoy the simple act of giving, the quiet connection between himself, the dog, and the birds. It was a warmth that could not be faked, a feeling that made the dog feel part of something bigger. He had spent countless nights alone fighting for scraps and shelter, and now for the first time he felt included. The night was still cold, but the heavy loneliness that usually weighed on him seemed to lift, if only slightly. The man shifted his position, sitting down on the edge of the square's fountain. Snow clung to the edges, sparkling in the soft light of nearby lamps. The dog watched, curious but cautious, as the man reached into his coat and pulled out a small thermos. He poured a little warm water into a metal cup and held it down to the dog. The dog sniffed cautiously and then lapped at it eagerly. Warmth spread through his body, not just from the water, but from the care in the man's gesture. He had never received such attention, never been treated with such consideration, and it made him feel a strange, hopeful comfort. The man spoke softly, not in loud or commanding tones, but in gentle murmurs that seemed meant to soothe. The dog tilted his head, listening, understanding the kindness even though he could not comprehend the words. There was a rhythm to the man's voice, a calmness that matched the slow fall of snow around them. Each word seemed to carry a piece of reassurance, a promise that he was not alone anymore. The dog's tail wagged a little more confidently now, brushing against the snowy ground. As the minutes passed, the dog grew bolder. He inched closer, resting his small body near the man's legs. The man smiled and shifted slightly, allowing the dog to curl against him. It was a small, quiet bond forming, an unspoken agreement that they were in this moment together. The dog could feel the warmth radiating from the man's coat, and it seeped into his own chilled body. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he did not feel like a stray lost in the cold city. He felt like someone mattered to him, and perhaps he mattered to someone else too. People passed by the square, many unaware of the quiet scene unfolding. A few glanced over, curiosity flickering in their eyes at the sight of a man sitting in the snow with a dog nestled at his side, sharing a simple meal. Some smiled and walked on, touched by the quiet kindness, but the man and the dog were lost in their own small world. The night stretched on and the snow continued to fall, but inside that little bubble of warmth the world felt safer, gentler, and a little more magical. The dog's eyes followed the man carefully, noticing every small movement. There was a trust growing, fragile but real. He could sense that this human had intentions that were good, that he genuinely cared about creatures smaller and weaker than himself. It was a strange and wonderful feeling for the dog, who had spent so long hiding, scavenging, and fearing every passerby. Now he did not hide. He did not fear. He allowed himself to enjoy the small comforts, the pieces of bread, the warm water, the gentle touches. Each act was a gift, and he felt it deeply. After a while, the man leaned back slightly, surveying the quiet square. The dog looked up at him, sensing a change, as if the man was thinking about what to do next. The dog's ears perked up, alert but relaxed. He could feel that something important was about to happen, though he did not know what. The night was cold, yes, but it no longer felt empty. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that the moments they shared were leading to something meaningful, something that could alter the course of this lonely night. The man reached into his coat again, pulling out a small folded blanket. He placed it gently on the ground and patted it, inviting the dog to lie down. The dog sniffed it carefully, then eased onto the soft fabric. It was a new sensation, soft and protective, and he pressed his body against it, feeling the warmth seep through his fur. The man knelt beside him, stroking his back gently, speaking in low, comforting tones. The dog closed his eyes, letting himself sink into the moment, letting go of the tension that had gripped him for so long. Hours seemed to pass quietly. The city's sounds faded into the background, leaving only the soft patter of snow and the occasional distant car. The dog rested, feeling safer than he had in his entire life. He had never experienced a night like this, one where he was not running, hiding, or searching desperately for crumbs. Instead, he was given a choice to stay, to rest, to trust, and to hope. And for the first time, he believed that there could be a better tomorrow. The man finally rose, dusting snow from his coat, but he did not leave the dog behind. Instead, he remained close, speaking softly, offering more pieces of bread and allowing the dog to follow as he moved through the square. The dog stayed near, following his gentle movements, learning that this human's presence was safe, comforting, and protective. With each step, the dog felt more secure, more connected, and more willing to trust. The night, which had started as a cold, lonely struggle, was slowly transforming into a memory of care and hope. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the dog looked up at the man with eyes full of gratitude. He could not speak, could not express in words the depth of feeling that had grown inside him, but he did not need to. The man understood. The simple gestures, the bread, the water, the blanket, the gentle touch, had communicated more than words ever could. The dog curled closer, allowing himself to fully feel the warmth, safety, and kindness that had touched him tonight. He had survived the streets, but tonight he had discovered something else. The possibility of connection, the comfort of compassion, and the quiet joy of being seen. The night deepened, and the snow continued to fall softly, covering the streets in a peaceful, quiet blanket. The dog, now feeling warmer and a little stronger, stayed close to the man. Each movement of the man was careful and gentle, as if he was aware that the small creature beside him had been through too much to trust easily. The man reached down again, patting the dog's head lightly, and the dog leaned into the touch, feeling the comfort of a hand that offered no harm, only kindness. The dog's ears twitched as he listened to the man hum a soft, gentle tune. The sound was low and calming, almost like a lullaby carried by the winter wind. The dog tilted his head, feeling the vibrations in his chest, sensing the warmth and safety in the man's presence. He had spent countless nights hiding from loud noises, sudden movements, and harsh words, but this night was different. The man's voice was steady, full of calm reassurance, and it made the dog feel that perhaps not all humans were to be feared. After a few moments, the man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another small piece of bread. He held it out, smiling softly, and the dog approached cautiously. Hunger had brought him close, but trust had kept him there. He sniffed the bread, then ate it slowly, savoring every bite. The warmth from the bread spread through his body, and for the first time in many nights he felt full enough to rest without worry. The man watched him carefully, as if making sure that this small creature had everything he needed, and the dog felt a quiet gratitude that was almost too big to express. The man shifted slightly and looked around the quiet square. The lights from nearby buildings reflected in the snow, creating a soft glow that made the scene almost magical. He spoke again softly, in words the dog could not understand but could feel. There was a rhythm to the speech, a gentleness that carried reassurance and care. The dog tilted his head, watching the man's face, sensing that the attention and kindness were genuine. He pressed closer, resting his small body against the man's leg, feeling warmth spread from the contact. Hours seemed to pass slowly, but in a comforting way. The city's usual bustle had faded, leaving only the soft whisper of snow and the occasional distant footsteps. The man reached down again, brushing a small amount of snow off the dog's fur. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to the dog. He had never been cared for in this way before. The touch was gentle, protective, and full of quiet concern. The dog leaned into it, feeling a connection he had never known. It was not just warmth he felt, but trust, a bond forming in the stillness of the snowy night. The man looked around, noticing the cold and emptiness of the streets. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small blanket, spreading it on the ground and patting it, inviting the dog to lie down. The dog sniffed it carefully, then eased onto the soft fabric, curling up and feeling the softness beneath him. The man knelt beside him, stroking his back gently, whispering more words that, while he could not understand them, made the dog feel calm and safe. For the first time, the dog did not need to stay alert, did not need to fight or hide. He could rest, knowing he was protected. The snow continued to fall lightly, and the dog's eyes followed the man closely, noticing every movement. The trust between them had grown, and the dog's tail wagged more confidently now. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth of the man's presence, and listened to the soft rhythmic words spoken just for him. There was no rush, no judgment, only a quiet, steady kindness that made the dog feel seen and valued. It was a new feeling, overwhelming yet comforting, and he let himself fully embrace it. The man finally rose slightly, brushing snow off his coat, but he remained close, letting the dog stay on the blanket. He reached into his bag again and offered more pieces of bread, which the dog ate carefully. Each small meal, each gentle touch, each soft word built a connection that was stronger than the cold and the darkness around them. The dog had never felt such care, and he responded with trust and affection, leaning against the man and wagging his tail slightly with each gesture of kindness. As the night went on, the man guided the dog gently toward a small square where the lights of a Christmas tree glimmered. The pigeons had flown away, but the warmth of the scene and the gentle presence of the man made the dog feel at ease. He followed closely, stepping carefully on the soft snow, watching the man's movements and learning that this human could be trusted completely. There was a rhythm to their movements together, a quiet understanding that no words could capture. The dog had never experienced companionship like this, and it filled him with a sense of peace he had thought impossible. The man finally sat down on a bench, placing the dog on the blanket beside him. He pulled out a small metal cup and poured a little warm water, holding it down so the dog could drink. The dog lapped eagerly, feeling the warmth spread through his body, a comfort he had never known. The man spoke softly, watching him drink, and the dog tilted his head in gratitude. He had spent too many nights alone, too many moments fearing the world, and now he had someone who cared, someone who made him feel safe and valued. The city remained quiet, the snow falling softly around them, and the man reached down to scratch the dog gently behind the ears. The dog leaned into the touch, eyes half closed in contentment. He felt a bond forming, an unspoken understanding that this human was different from all the others he had encountered. There was a calmness in his presence, a warmth that filled the cold night, and the dog realized that he could trust this person completely. For the first time, he felt the possibility of a better life, even if just for a moment. The man spoke again softly, and the dog listened intently, sensing the meaning behind the gentle words. There was a rhythm to the voice, a quiet reassurance that made the dog feel calm and protected. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth of the man's coat, and let himself relax completely. The snow continued to fall, the city remained quiet, and the man stayed with him, offering gentle touches, small meals, and soft words. The dog had never experienced such care, and he responded with trust, affection, and a deep sense of gratitude. The night stretched on, and the dog's body relaxed more with each passing moment. He had survived countless nights alone, but tonight was different. He had food, warmth, safety, and kindness. The man had given him more than just bread or water. He had given him a moment of connection, a sense of belonging, and a rare feeling of hope. The dog pressed closer, feeling the bond grow stronger, and realized that this night, this human could change everything. As the clock moved closer to midnight, the man leaned back slightly, brushing snow off his coat, and the dog nestled closer, resting his head against the man's leg. The warmth, the safety, and the kindness surrounded him, and he closed his eyes, feeling a peace he had never known. The man's soft words and gentle touches created a quiet rhythm that filled the night, and the dog felt completely safe for the first time in his life. The snow continued to fall softly, blanketing the city in quiet beauty, and the dog stayed close to the man, sensing that this moment, this connection, was something rare and precious. He had lived on the streets, endured hunger and cold, and faced countless dangers, but tonight he discovered that kindness still existed, that trust could be given and returned, and that hope could be found in the most unexpected places. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth, and knew that this Christmas Eve would be remembered not for the cold or loneliness, but for the quiet miracle of connection and care. The snow continued to fall, and the city felt almost magical under the soft white blanket. The dog stayed close to the man, feeling a sense of safety he had never known before. His small body was no longer trembling from cold or hunger, and he pressed against the warmth radiating from the man's coat. The night had shifted from a lonely struggle to a quiet comfort, and the dog's heart felt lighter with every passing moment. The man reached down and gently patted the dog's head. He spoke softly, his voice calm and steady, and the dog tilted his head, listening to the soothing tones. There was a sense of care in every word, a promise that he was not alone, and the dog leaned closer, letting himself be fully present in the moment. The warmth, the attention, and the gentle gestures were unlike anything he had ever experienced on the streets. It was more than just physical comfort. It was the first real taste of kindness that had no strings attached. After a few moments, the man stood up and looked around the quiet square. The Christmas lights flickered softly in the snow, and the streets were mostly empty. He glanced down at the dog, whose eyes followed him with trust and curiosity. The man crouched slightly, offering a small piece of bread once more. The dog sniffed it carefully before eating it slowly, savoring each bite. He was learning that with this human there was no rush, no danger, only patience and care. The trust between them had grown, small but steady, and the dog felt something he had not felt in a long time: hope. The man then reached into his coat and pulled out a small blanket. He laid it gently on the snowy ground and patted it, inviting the dog to lie down. The dog sniffed it, then eased himself onto the soft fabric, curling up as warmth spread through his body. The man sat beside him, brushing the snow off his coat and murmuring softly. The dog pressed against the man, feeling the gentle rhythm of his voice, the careful touch, and the steady presence. It was as if the world had paused for this moment, allowing them to share a quiet connection in the middle of the cold city night. As the minutes passed, the man looked around and seemed to think. He reached into his bag again, this time pulling out a small package of dog food he had brought along. He opened it and placed a portion in front of the dog. The dog sniffed it, then ate eagerly, the flavors unfamiliar but comforting. Each bite reinforced the bond between them, and the dog's tail wagged slightly, a small but meaningful sign of gratitude and trust. The man smiled softly, his eyes reflecting the quiet joy of giving and the satisfaction of seeing another living being cared for. People occasionally passed by, glancing at the man and the dog, some offering smiles and kind nods. But the dog remained focused on the man, sensing that this was the one who truly cared. The warmth of the connection was strong, built on patience, attention, and a gentle understanding of each other's needs. The dog had never experienced anything like this before, and the feelings it brought were almost overwhelming. He pressed closer, leaning against the man's leg, feeling safe, cherished, and seen. The man reached down again, scratching gently behind the dog's ears. The dog closed his eyes, letting himself fully enjoy the comforting touch. The world around them was quiet, filled only with the soft sound of falling snow and distant streetlights. The man's voice was low and calming, speaking in words that the dog could not understand but felt deep within him. Each gesture and word built a sense of trust, a bridge between the dog's lonely past and the warmth of the present. For the first time, he did not need to fear humans. He could simply be. After a while, the man rose slightly and walked a few steps, looking down at the dog. The dog followed closely, trusting the movement and sensing that they were about to go somewhere. The man guided him gently toward a small cafe that had its doors open for the holiday night. The warm light spilled onto the snow-covered streets, and the aroma of baked goods and coffee filled the air. The dog's nose twitched, but he did not rush. He stayed close, trusting the man completely, feeling safe in his presence. The man opened the cafe door and the small bell jingled softly. The staff inside smiled at the sight of the dog and the man, offering warm greetings. The dog hesitated for a moment, unsure of this new environment, but the man crouched down, whispering softly and gesturing for him to follow. The dog stepped inside carefully, feeling the warmth envelop him. The floor was dry, the air was warm, and the smells were inviting. He pressed close to the man, sensing that he was still being protected, still safe, and that everything would be all right. A small bowl of water was placed in front of him, followed by a generous portion of food. The dog sniffed it, then ate eagerly, savoring the flavors and the warmth that spread through his body. The man watched quietly, smiling as the dog ate with a mixture of relief and joy. Each bite was a small celebration, a reminder that he no longer had to scavenge or worry constantly. The kindness extended by this one human had transformed a moment of desperation into a memory of care and comfort. Other people in the cafe noticed the dog and the man. Some smiled, some took pictures quietly, but the atmosphere remained calm and warm. The dog, feeling the protection of the man, stayed close, enjoying the safety and warmth for the first time in a long while. The man patted his head gently, speaking softly, and the dog leaned into the touch. The bond had grown stronger, built on trust, care, and shared moments of quiet connection. After the meal, the man did not rush the dog. He allowed him time to rest, providing the blanket he had brought earlier and ensuring the dog felt secure. The dog curled up on the soft fabric, pressing close to the warmth of the man's presence. The night outside remained cold, but within the cafe there was a bubble of safety and comfort. The dog had never experienced anything like this, and the feelings it brought were deep and lasting. He realized that he could trust, that humans could care, and that kindness could transform even the loneliest of nights. The man spoke softly again, offering gentle reassurances, and the dog listened intently. He could feel the care and attention in every word, in every gesture, and he pressed closer, feeling warmth and love that he had never known. The cafe was filled with quiet moments of peace, laughter from the staff, and the soft hum of conversation. But for the dog, the most important thing was the steady presence of the man, the one who had turned a cold, lonely Christmas Eve into a night of hope and comfort. As the night went on, the dog's eyes grew heavy, and he began to relax fully, trusting the man completely. The small gestures of kindness, the food, the blanket, and the gentle words had created a sense of security that was unfamiliar but deeply comforting. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth and care radiating from the man, and let himself rest. For the first time in many long nights, he felt safe, valued, and cared for. The man watched him with a quiet smile, recognizing the change in the small creature beside him. He had seen the loneliness, the fear, and the hunger, and he had offered care, patience, and understanding. The dog, in response, had begun to trust, to bond, and to accept the kindness offered. It was a small but profound miracle, a moment of connection in a world that often overlooked those who were most vulnerable. The night continued quietly, the snow falling softly outside, and the dog rested peacefully, curled up on the blanket. The man remained nearby, offering gentle touches, soft words, and the steady presence that had become a lifeline for the dog. The bond had grown, strong and unspoken, built on trust, care, and quiet moments of connection. The dog pressed closer, feeling the warmth and safety, and for the first time he understood what it meant to be truly cared for. This Christmas Eve, which had begun in loneliness and hunger, had transformed into a night of hope and comfort. The dog had discovered kindness, safety, and connection in the presence of a human who saw him not as a stray, but as a living being deserving of care. The small gestures, the food, the blanket, the gentle words, had all combined to create a moment that would be remembered long after the snow had melted and the city had returned to its usual pace. The dog pressed closer, feeling the warmth, safety, and love that had touched him, and knew that his life, even if just for this night, had changed forever. The night was quiet now, the snow falling gently, covering the city in a soft white blanket. The dog rested on the blanket the man had provided, feeling warmth he had never known. He pressed close to the man, sensing the steady presence that had become his safety. For hours he had eaten, drunk, rested, and received gentle touches, each one building trust, each one showing that this human truly cared. The cold and hunger that had haunted him for so long were replaced by comfort and a sense of hope. The man spoke softly, low enough that the dog could feel the calm in his voice rather than understand the words. The dog tilted his head, listening, feeling the kindness that was poured into each sound. He had spent so many nights alone, wandering streets, searching for crumbs, avoiding humans, and fearing the dangers of the city. But now he was not alone. He had discovered warmth, trust, and compassion in the most unexpected way. The man's presence had changed the night completely, transforming what could have been despair into hope. After a few minutes, the man stood, brushing off the snow from his coat. He looked down at the dog with a gentle smile and spoke again softly. The dog's tail wagged slightly, his eyes following every movement. He had come to understand that this human meant no harm, that he offered only care and kindness. The bond they had formed was quiet but profound, built on shared moments, gentle gestures, and trust earned in small steps. The dog pressed closer, feeling the warmth and safety, knowing that this human had become his protector for the night. The man reached into his bag and pulled out a small toy, a simple rubber ball, and rolled it gently toward the dog. The dog sniffed it cautiously, then nudged it with his nose. The simple action brought a small spark of joy to his heart. He had spent so long in survival mode that joy had been rare, fleeting, almost impossible to grasp. Yet now, in the soft light of the cafe, surrounded by warmth and care, he felt something entirely new. He nudged the ball again, and the man laughed softly, a warm sound that filled the quiet room. The dog pressed closer, sensing the happiness in the human's voice, and felt a deep comfort in the connection they shared. The hours passed slowly, each moment steeped in quiet companionship. The man offered more food and warm water, ensuring the dog had everything he needed. The dog ate and drank carefully, savoring each bite, each sip, and then rested, curling up closer to the man. He felt the steady rhythm of the man's presence, the gentle tone of his voice, the soft touch of his hands, and the security of being seen and cared for. Each gesture built a trust that the dog had never known before, a bridge from loneliness to hope. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the city streets and quieting the usual sounds of traffic and movement. Inside the cafe, there was warmth, light, and a quiet peace that made the dog feel safe. The man sat beside him, stroking his back gently, whispering comforting words, and the dog leaned into each touch. The world outside had been harsh and unforgiving, but within this small space he had discovered safety, kindness, and the first real taste of compassion. He had never imagined that such a moment could exist, and yet, here it was, tangible and real. The man finally stood, glancing at the dog with a soft smile. He spoke in low, soothing tones, and the dog followed his movements carefully. They stepped outside together, the cold night brushing against their faces, but the dog felt no fear. The warmth of the bond they had formed lingered, carrying him through the chill. The man guided him gently through the quiet streets, careful not to rush, letting the dog feel secure with each step. The snow crunched softly under their feet, and the city seemed to hold its breath as if recognizing the quiet miracle unfolding. They reached a local animal shelter that remained open for the holiday night. The man spoke to the staff, who smiled and welcomed them inside. The dog's eyes widened slightly at the new surroundings, but he did not move away. He trusted the man completely, sensing that he was still protected. The staff offered warm water and a comfortable space for him, and the dog settled in, feeling safe and cared for. The man knelt beside him, whispering soft words, and the dog leaned closer, feeling the security and warmth he had been missing for so long. The shelter staff promised that the dog would have a safe place to sleep, regular meals, and people who would care for him with the same gentleness the man had shown. The dog tilted his head, listening and sensing the kindness in the voices around him. He had survived countless nights alone, but now he realized that there could be a different life waiting for him, one filled with safety, care, and compassion. The man patted him gently one last time, whispered softly, and the dog pressed closer, understanding in his own way the gift he had been given. As the night continued, the dog lay down on a soft blanket provided by the shelter. He felt full, warm, and safe. The events of the night, the bread, the water, the gentle touches, the kind words, and the trust he had learned, had changed him. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth and kindness, understanding that he could rest without fear for the first time in what felt like forever. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the city in quiet beauty, while inside, the dog discovered the comfort of care and the promise of hope. The man lingered for a moment, watching the dog settle comfortably. He spoke softly, offering gentle reassurance, and the dog listened, sensing the kindness in every word. The bond they had formed was quiet but profound, built on trust, patience, and understanding. The dog had learned that humans could care, that kindness could exist, and that even in a world that often felt harsh, there were moments of connection and love. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth, the security, and the gentle presence that had changed his night completely. Outside, the city continued its quiet rhythm, the snow falling steadily, but inside, the dog rested with a sense of peace he had never known. The man left the shelter, knowing that he had made a difference, and the dog felt the residual warmth of the care he had received. The night that had begun in hunger and fear had transformed into a story of kindness, trust, and hope. The dog pressed against the soft blanket, feeling the safety and warmth, understanding in his own way that this Christmas Eve had changed his life forever. Hours passed quietly, the dog sleeping peacefully, dreaming of warmth, food, and gentle touches. He had survived the streets, faced cold and hunger, and experienced loneliness, but he had also discovered compassion, care, and trust. The man's actions had provided not just physical comfort, but emotional security, a reminder that even the smallest gestures could create a profound difference. The dog pressed closer, feeling the love and safety that surrounded him, knowing that he was finally seen, valued, and cared for. As dawn approached, the city remained covered in soft snow, the streets quiet and peaceful. The dog awoke briefly, stretching, and felt the comfort of the shelter and the care of the man who had guided him here. He had learned that trust could be given and returned, that kindness could transform a lonely night, and that hope could exist even in the coldest moments. The small gestures, the food, the gentle touch, the warmth, and the attention had all combined to create a moment of profound change. The dog settled back onto the blanket, feeling full, warm, and safe. The memory of the night, the trust, the companionship, and the gentle presence of the man would stay with him forever. He had discovered the power of kindness and the promise of hope. The snow continued to fall outside, and the city slowly woke to a new day. But the dog knew that this night, this quiet connection, and the care he had received would remain a turning point in his life. He pressed closer, feeling the warmth, safety, and love, understanding that this Christmas Eve had given him something he had never imagined. A new beginning, filled with trust, compassion, and the quiet joy of being cared for.